Okay, there we go. So all I did is, if you want to go ahead and
Yeah,
start. All right, and so
yeah.
thank
Let
you.
me
Good.
share my screen. I'm just gonna stop my video for a sec, because
Okay. And once again, thank you for getting up so early in the morning to be with us. So,
well, oh yeah, of course, yeah. No, just getting off my morning run. It's true.
all right.
All right, so you guys can see my screen.
Yes.
All right. So I wanted to just show some more slides today, and before we get started. And the reason is that there's so much noise in and around AI, right? I mean, it's been what, a year and a half since some of this technology was released, and the amount of misinformation is just mind-boggling. So what we're starting to realize is that, at least from my perspective, is that there are roles that these tools can play. There are limitations, certainly, not only just on the performance side, but also on the adoption side, and also on the ethical scalability side as well. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about that before we get going. Um, so when we're talking about AI applications in education, there's really a good, nice dividing line that's starting to blur a bit between what's available here and now, meaning today, right, versus what's coming down the line and what we're hoping that AI can help us do. The reason this is important is because some of the misunderstanding of how AI applications work is spilled over into what's the future, and people think the future is already here. And the facts are that it's just not.
Mm.
Some of the promises for this type of technology is personalized adaptive learning. Everyone talks about that. How can I get the AI to give me the information that is really personalized? We're still not there, even though that's on a path forward. Still, the AI is not accurate enough to give us what we want on a personalized level, and I can dig into the reasons for this real soon. Um, Automated assessment systems, and this goes beyond just providing course material, but really drawing from a lot of different resources to help our educators lessen their overall workload, whether that's on the administrative side or on the procurement of knowledge side as well. Enhanced content creation. There are some tools that can help you create content, but it's still not good enough that you say it's my work. We tend to need to still edit and modify content that's created using these AI tools. Language learning and translation. Now, that's come a long way, but also keep in mind the accuracy of this is still up for debate. As a matter of fact, even the big tech companies can't really give you a good number on what is an accurate translation, even though it can translate. But does it really speak to my dialect, my language? We're still not there, even with translations. This also has to be kind of fact checked by humans. Student support and counseling. Um, and this is obviously, in just not academic resources, but mental health resources, providing even emotional support and well-being. So all of these tools, all these tasks here are done by humans still. And AI is going to help push that along. But the promise of it being able to do that in 2024 is still not there. And part of the reason really speaks to the fact that these models' behaviors are not consistent. And this is really a great example. This one publication talked about how Claude AI, which is one of these language models, behaves differently depending on who the end user is and how they're using the actual product. Um, when you dig a little bit deeper, these models have two different flavors. One is the commercial flavor. This is the prompt that you see on your desktop, Copilot, Bing, Google. That's the commercial public-facing chatbot. And there's also the API. These are the integrated tools that enterprise companies and startups and app developers get. And the model behavior is different between the two in the sense that the commercial-facing one has more guardrails, safety net in front of it, and the API tools that developers use don't. Turns out also that the majority of the market is here. This is how they're going to make money. Big tech is going to make money selling this to other companies. And this is the layer that doesn't have the safety application and the ethical applications that are as tight as the commercial facing one. Now, when you look at use of terms, it is as is. So the AI companies, right, have kind of, wiped their hands off of the liability here, saying what comes out, it is what it is. It's your responsibility to take that and go to the next step, and we don't take responsibility for that. So this type of barrier, not only different behavior of the models, inconsistent, but also the fact that the providers of these models are saying it's yours, go with it, not ours, is really one of the reasons that it's not being highly adopted just yet by a lot of different enterprise systems. They're integrating some of this, but not full wide adoption just yet. This speaks to the transparency. There's actually a foundation for model transparency, and this really blew my mind. Transparency talks about how accurate is the model, really digging inside the model to be able to understand it, why it behaves a certain way. And the big players, right? OpenAI, 49%. I mean, that score is really, really low. Half the time, we don't even know why it's behaving the way it's behaving. Now, this has gotten better. Compared to even a year ago, these bars have moved up. This is here now. Think of this as your FDA label for your AI, in a way, as a one component of it, by the way. And then independent auditors are looking at these models, looking at their behaviors, and seeing how they're behaving. So this is really what's going on in 2024. And the good news is that these companies are now publicly publishing this material that's available to you. And you have to take this with a grain of salt. So really what's available is human in the loop, co-learning, education using these tools, and really having it be the extension of the instructor. And that's where our solutions really shine, is the fact that they're not going to replace, but they're going to augment, and they're gonna help address these issues with transparency, explainability, also model behavior. So I just want to set that as a backdrop to what we're going to talk about, and why I think integrated tools have to be used wisely, and can't just be turned open to the public going, here's this robot, go talk to it. Okay. So having said that, I'm going to pause and see if anyone's got any questions, and then jump into a little bit of content creation and what the tools, how our tools are designed to help enhance the learning experience. So any questions so far? Does this make sense, this concept here? Yeah. Okay.
So just real quick, I want to just welcome Dr. Gatewood in this morning. Good morning, Robert, and our new friend Tricia Richard Service, a new pal, who is in the field of, well, Tricia, just say a word about yourself, would you?
I'm a unicorn, Roger.
Yeah.
I have a background in corporate communications, and I am also a recovering academic. I am currently an adjunct at Temple University, where I teach an interdisciplinary course in collaboration with Temple School of Medicine and Temple Health, solving real life problems. And they're implementing our solutions, which are created as part of a capstone level course into their everyday business, which is wonderful. So we're doing a lot of cool things. We've done overcoming vaccine hesitancy for multi-generational families in North Philadelphia. We've done trauma-informed communication. We've done how to build and maintain institutional trust. We just finished recruitment of diverse populations into cancer clinical trials. And we're now working on a menopause clinic structure.
Wow.
I also own a speakers bureau called I Need a Speaker, which provides qualified speakers at all price points to the people who want to book them. And that's how I met Roger.
Yeah, Tricia's new friend. So yeah, welcome, Tricia. Right. And
Thank
Robert,
you for having me.
oh, glad you're here. Glad you're here. Robert, just wave, just a quick wave there from, there he is.
Sorry, I was got I was buried in work and I completely lost track of time. Sorry.
Great. So welcome, guys. And Aladdin, please continue. So thank you both
Yeah.
for being here. So
Yeah, nice to meet you, Trish, by the way. And you said you're a recovering academician?
Yes.
I know what that's like.
yeah, I think I do too, right?
Yes. For some
Uh-huh.
reason, I can't give it up. I mean, I'm still teaching 2 classes at Temple in spite of running the business. So, and I'm
But
loving all of it, which is
yeah,
a great sign.
I just miss my faculty meetings at 6:30 in the morning on Mondays. So
Oh, that's painful. That's like cruel. We never did that.
oh yeah. Anyway,
you
thank you.
West Coasters. So thank
Yeah,
you.
exactly. All right.
If I,
Anyway, nice.
I want to commend Tricia on all the work she's done. That's
Yeah,
unbelievable. Just
Thank
absolutely
you.
unbelievable, really.
yeah,
Thank
yeah.
you.
No,
Congratulations.
so yeah, no, I mean that's wonderful, and I have loads of interest in all those areas. Anyway, so moving on, what I wanted to share with you is one of the issues is like, how do I make content to feed into your system, right? How do I get my lecture to come to life? Let me switch over to this screen here. Can you guys see this?
Yes.
All right, so this is actually a lecture that was turned into an interactive video on coronary vascular disease, and it was fed into our system to make it an interactive lecture. But how do we get to this point from a PowerPoint? So I'll backtrack and just show you my lecture. This was my med school lecture that I used for carpal tunnel syndrome for years and years. And what I did was, I used one of these generative tools to help put some color on it. So can you see the screen right here? That's the ChatGPT screen.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So what I did is, this is, by the way, the latest model, GPT-O Omni, which stands for multimodal, right? So it can feed it a lot more information. It can understand a lot more. So what I did, I just put the lecture in here, just imported it through this little icon on the bottom. And I told it to give me presenter notes for every slide, read it, give me presenter notes as if I'm presenting to first-year medical students, right? And this really speaks to the adaptive learning part of this because I'm asking for it to have a certain knowledge base or tonality. I'm not sure if it's going to get it right, but I'm asking for it. And it read it. So it went to the title slide and it, welcome, second slide, which is the fact versus fiction slide, on, right? So it's kind of going through and it's giving me presenter notes. And this is reasonable because it reflects some of my perspective on this condition, but maybe not all of it. So it went through, and this took, I think, 2 minutes for it to, maybe even less, for it to spit out, all this information, 20 some slides, with some presenter notes. Then I took that and I give it another prompt. I said, that's great. Now put these presenter notes underneath the PowerPoint slide and give me the downloaded PowerPoint slide back. And sure enough, it did that. Same lecture, and you can see I didn't do anything but just ask for it, and it gave me the presenter notes to that lecture at the bottom of each particular slide. Now, I, as the content owner, have to audit this, right? Because this is okay, but maybe I want to talk about these other conditions, and maybe it didn't understand everything, and maybe I want to use more words, and I need to really check it against my own knowledge base to see if this is correct. Obviously didn't do that for this presentation, but that's that human, this is the 80%, 90% that the AI has done for me, but I still need to do that final 10%, that final check, really the fact checking before I have it face the students that are going to be using this lecture. So let's say I went ahead and did that, made the edits, agreed with what it said, and I wanted to make an interactive lecture. The next step would be to then import it within our IVO studio. Can you guys see the screen here?
Yes.
Yeah. So this is the IVO studio, and this is what Archana was asking access to. And I apologize, Archana. We can even do a training session, you and I, or one of our trainers, to show you how the system works. But it's as simple as creating the presentation on this timeline, and really importing that PowerPoint lecture into the system. So I hit import. It imported that with the presenter notes and all the slides. Right, so that's already imported. This is the slide sorter on the side. That's already imported within the system. The presenter notes that the AI created that I edited are now at the bottom here. And this character, actually, this is our chief engineer, Arnav. I kind of like it because it's probably the best looking character we have so far as detail goes, speaks the spoken words that are in the presenter notes. And you can review this by just hitting the play button. Pause it, make pronunciation and pausing corrections, make any edits to the media that you'd like, change the slide, add a video, put a link, add animations, and we showed that last time. You know, you can animate it to have the character speak to the slide, look at the slide, make any sort of gestures to kind of pull the students along. And also the ability to make the character disappear on a particular slide. The reason that's important is because we don't want to be looking at it at all times. We want the character to show up at certain points in time and behave in a certain way to draw attention, right? So you can really fine tune this before you go ahead and publish it. And those steps right there, getting an imported PowerPoint with presenter notes, editing, and publishing are really the steps you need to take before you have an interactive lecture. So what happens next is really after publishing, the system prints out the session. And can you see my screen here?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
It gives you a code, and this code is really what you share with your students. This code is the streaming or the web app component of this, which stays the same regardless of any edits you do in the background, which means that if I change anything in the content, this code is still stationary. So the end user doesn't have to do anything as the content gets updated. They just reference that same code. And then when I hit play, so there's the character talking to you. I didn't put any AI layer on it. We'll get into that next, but you can see that lecture, was uploaded.
There's no sound, Alidad, just to let you know.
Oh yeah, so thank you so much. If I had a penny for every time I forget to share sound, I mean, there you go. So, by the way, the voice on this is very robotic. That's going to get improved. Our other voices are much better than this, but this is really it's a good iteration of what the technology can do as far as visual appearance goes. But I'm just going to play it.
DTS. It's important to distinguish between what is scientifically proven and common misconceptions.
So if you look at the facial expressions, the hand gestures, all of that, there's AI tools and models running in the background that automate that whole experience. So the pointing at you, the facial expressions, the blinking, the little, the little twinkle in the eye, all that is done in the background through these AI engines that are integrated within the system. Some of it can be overridden, obviously, but this is the end result of creating this lecture. Obviously, all the other buttons with closed caption and full screen and different chapters are all there. So these are the steps. Just taking this PowerPoint slide, which I've had for I started this was 20-year-old slide deck, and really modernizing it and extending it to my students through this tool. This is what the IVO Studio can do with one of your lectures, where it can become the presenter of this type of information. I'm going to pause there to see if there are any questions on this part about content creation before I show you how to, before showing you what the end result can potentially look like with interactivity.
I put a question in chat about accessibility, but that has nothing to do with the content itself.
So what? Sorry, yeah. Let me see what your question is.
I'm thinking about
Yeah,
people
so
with,
yeah, this comes up all the time. Yes. So so this is a very important question. There are different ways, and I'll show you in the tool how you can interact with the system once you get the final product. But accessibility, so closed caption, right? And
Mhm.
then when we show you the interactivity, there is text to speech. You can also type in your question, and we also present comment interactions as well.
I love
Um, as far as visually impaired, now this has been a challenge, and the hearing these are challenges we're actually looking forward to address. To get this character to actually sign is one of the things we've been use sign language is one of the things we've been talking about for a while. It's exceedingly difficult to get it to perform that. So this is one of the hard goals we have that will be achieved, but maybe in a year or so that'll be available. And the reason has to do with just getting these characters to move in a certain way as it correlates with speech. As far as visual impairment goes, I don't have any good answers. I think something like this can be used to help co-educate, right? So someone has, you have
Yeah.
difficulty, your teacher can help you, your caretaker can help you. But these are excellent questions, and 100% I agree with you on that. By the way, the other thing is the character itself can be changed, right? To not only represent a certain um, ethnic background, certain cultural background, certain body habitus, certain dress, on and on.
That's
And the
fun.
reason for that is to obviously help better connect with the students. And this can, by the way, be any of you, right? So this is Arnav. This is, and from a few pictures we created this. So yeah, this can be the professor's representative, looking and talking and sounding even with cloned voice, just like the professor.
Can you make an avatar of me that's 25 pounds thinner?
Yeah. So okay. So okay, you got me going now, right? So
No, the
this is
reason I asked about the vision impairment was the color of the text was yellow against white, and I
yes,
thought you could probably program in to have high contrast
yes,
text and background. That's what
yes,
triggered that whole thought.
yes, yes. No, that's an excellent point. And to your point, yes, that can also be done. So everything that you see can be edited and modified. Again, there's limitations on what the system can do, but there's a lot of flexibility in it. And when you're talking about characters, this is so Johns Hopkins is one of our partners and customers on the healthcare education side. When we talked to them about this solution, they wanted, for pediatric asthma patients, they wanted a character that's resonates with them. And we made this Muppet character, right? I mean, this guy's made after our CEO. So, it's
Can try to provide some humor and creative explanation. Perhaps VCs are drawn to Muppet CEOs because they, one, bring joy and whimsy.
so you can see the voice is a cloned voice, and then there's that kind of contrast between a funny looking character and this dull, boring voice that makes it interesting. So you have a lot of flexibility, and this is really where creative minds will excel using systems like this, because they'll sit there and they'll go, well, that's good, but why can't we turn it on its head? So getting back on to what I was talking about, which is, okay, through this whole process now, I showed you I made my boring old repetitive lecture on carpal tunnel syndrome from 1999 into more of an interactive digital solution. And I did the same thing for this coronary vascular disorder lecture for nursing school, right? So this was let's see, it's a 40-some page slide. I did the same process, imported it into the QVO platform to make that interactive lecture. And now I have to find it. But I'm going to show you what that product looks like. And then here it is. And show you some of the components of our QVO streaming system. Now this lecture was imported into here, you can import any video of any length into the system and then let the AI take over and help with the interactivity. So let me go to view mode. This is what it looks like.
To get
So that coronary vascular
I am
disease
here on
lecture.
behalf of Dr. Kathleen Rosales today to present Chapter 23 on coronary vascular disorders.
So the character points at the slide, gets your attention moving in that direction.
In this chapter, we'll study the causes,
And then she disappears
These are the earliest signs.
when you want the viewer to focus on the screen. And that's all kind of programmed in. She only shows up and you know, if you look at the streaming timeline down here, shows up at certain moments that are important. And she disappears, right? And some of this is like, you know, when she's talking about what an important role nurses have, and they're really the eyes of the patient to really, again, bring a little bit of an emotive component to this kind of repetitive, dry lecture. But the beauty of this is that you can interact with it by hitting the Ask Me button. So as soon as you hit this, you get a screen that opens up that allows you to type in your question or use the speech to text to ask a question, but it also presents you with common things that you want your viewers to either see, ask, or act on, right? So one of the things I put in here is CPR resources, right? I mean, how many times that you hear a lecture on heart disease, but then it's like, where do I learn about CPR? Well, this is embedded front and center. And when you hit that resource, instead of giving you an answer, it actually gives you a link to the American Heart Association's website, courses on CPR, ACLS, pediatric, on, and you don't leave the experience. You're right there, front and center, able to interact, sign up, do whatever you need to do to encourage you. And you can even embellish on that. So this could also have a little text on the bottom saying, we really want you to go and take the CPR resource, and a call to action type of a messaging as you're interacting with this. In addition to this, it gives you kind of like common questions, some with answers, and these answers are video answers that are related to the presentation. So when I ask that question, the response winds up being a clip.
And improve blood flow. But this is a delicate dance because
a component of that given lecture. And the AI did all that magically in the background but before we edited and published it, and allowed us to not only create questions, but create answers that relate to specific components of that particular lecture. So the data set's contained, the control layer is there, and you can really drive the conversation. The other thing that I added this time around is quizzes. And this is really great because this is a quiz that I made, right, on that lecture. I used Google Forms, embedded that quiz. This allows me to, as a content owner, this is my, account that I made the quiz under. And then as the user, it asks for the student's email. And it goes through and it gives the questions and the potential answers. And once you submit, it actually will send me a graded score for this particular student, and also their overall performance. Now you may say, well, that's kind of silly. Why would you take a quiz in this fashion? Well, it's more of an open book format where you can actually, let's say I'm studying this lecture, right? And the question, I'm stumped on this. I have no idea. Well, I can just go ahead and ask the professor, and
A deep understanding helps nurses manage and educate patients on heart health, forming the basis of medical knowledge and patient care.
so that is actually the question that I asked from the professor, and here's the answer. So it helps me as a tutor to give this cycle of quizzing the knowledge base and then getting the answers from the system. Now, it even gets more interesting because you can actually ask questions in a different language. And I asked a question here. If you can see the screen here, I just use Google Translate. I took a question, how does extreme heart rate affect cardiac output? Had it translated to Dutch. And then when I actually put that question in, ask in Dutch, the AI recognizes the language, goes in and
Een
includes.
hartslag onder de 50 of boven de 150 bpm kan de hartoutput verminderen en het risico op hartritmestoornissen verhogen, wat de noodzaak benadrukt om extreme hartslagen te beheersen.
I just love listening to that because it's just so wonderful.
Eileen got to love that because she's in the Netherlands. So
Yeah, no, I did that intentionally for our guests from the Netherlands, obviously. Yeah. But so it looks at it, it understands it's in Dutch, it queries the data set, and then it gives the response in Dutch from the content that's already there. And this supports 30 languages, which is kind of fantastic because the educational centers now are multicultural and multilingual, and a lot of this information also from universities goes overseas with e-learning. And one way to connect with them is through a multi-language tool like this. And it doesn't, so when you're looking in the background, right, when you're looking at the data sets here, right, this is the data set that's supporting the interactivity component of this lecture. It's all in English, right? And it's all kind of approved by me, and and we talked about how to create questions last time. Dig into this a little bit more. But it's all kind of, in English, and it's gone ahead and done the translation. Now the question comes up about accuracy of that. One of the things that we're working on is having that response published as well. So you change the language, this will all change language for you as well. So you can actually have everything be in Dutch, not just the response, not that layer behind it, but have everything translated as well. So that's very exciting, but it even gets better, but there's more, right? So one of the
We'll
things
study the causes.
we added since the last time we spoke was chapters. And this is as simple as, identifying the chapter and then just putting in the timestamp there, and it will directly go to that part of the presentation, right? And I turned the voice off just so I can speak over it. But creating chapters is very powerful. And the way you get to these components is really through the insights component of the edit tool. So having chapters helps break up a 38-minute lecture, and I really want to find out about cardiac complications of MI, then it takes me directly to the component of the lecture that I'm interested in. Another component of this is also on-the-fly translation. So what you can do is actually have the closed captioning transcript changed to a different language as well. It's going to take a second for it to do that, but that is now also incorporated in the tool. So let me just read this. I'm going to pause there and see if there's any questions before I show you the auto-generate component of this as well.
Arteries. It begins with foam cells forming in the.
So you can see the closed caption is now translated, and that can be obviously turned on and off. And I think this supports, and this is going to look better. The user interface for it's still a little clunky, but it supports multiple languages. So any questions about this component so far?
I have a couple of questions, Ali. One is, if say Archana is giving a talk and you have all the slides with what you want to say with each slide, does the let's say Archana wants to have it presented in her voice, does she train it just like you do, say, nuance or speech?
Yeah.
How does she train the computer with her voice? Secondly, once it's trained, then does the computer automatically just read everything, or is Archana actually the one reading it?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. So if Archana she goes on podium or sits in front of the computer, reads her lecture, right, and records it, and PowerPoint allows you to do that, that's an MP4 or a video. So that can get imported, and it's her voice on the output. And she doesn't have to do any training. She's just speaking, and the video is playing. Let me go. So that would be something like this, let's say this doctor just on the video with some slides, or it could be a PowerPoint slide and then her video is on the side, or she could just be narrating into it. We can take her voice, and in a matter of just a couple of days, depending on the voice, right? So some voices are a little bit more challenging. We can go ahead and clone them. And once you clone the voice, that voice then becomes part of the voice selection here. And you can go ahead and select that voice. And that voice winds up being not only cloned, but when you're asking a question, the output response is in her voice.
Yeah.
She doesn't have to do anything except give permission for that to be created. So she doesn't have to sit there and repeatedly train the system on her voice tonality. As a matter of fact, they cloned my voice, and the way that our engineers did it was when I started on this path, which is 2018, I went into the studio 2 12-hour sessions and repeatedly read transcript just to feed the system so it can sound like me. They took a sampling of that and they went ahead and cloned it. So today, to answer your question, we have our end users read a paragraph and then use that and just send us the voice from that paragraph, and then use that to create a cloned version of the voice. So to answer the question, you don't have to do much training for the system to be responsive.
Okay. And the last question is on the Google Translate.
Yes.
Is that can that be changed on the user end? Say you're a student in Holland and it's in English, but you want to hear it can you somehow, when you pull up the lecture, something so that now it's given, instead of in English, it's given in Dutch?
Yes. So that's a great question. Actually, that's possible. It hasn't been integrated in our tools yet. I suspect in the next 2 months it will. The difficulty in that is the lip sync. No one's been able to figure that out from a video. And by video, I mean actually like, a real video of the real human on a scalable production level. We still can't get the lip sync right, even though we can go ahead and do on-the-fly translation. So that's also going to get integrated where you're not just reading the subtitles in a foreign language. You're just switching language on the fly, and all of a sudden the lecture will be in your native language. The character-based solution, this is going to be easier to get the lip sync right on the characters, but on a real video, I think we're not there yet, and maybe even a year and a half away before Tom Cruise can speak Dutch in his in his movies, and you don't even know that they went ahead and did that. So some of that technology is available, I think, on the commercial level at a very high cost, but on a scalable everyday level, not quite ready yet. That's an excellent question. Yeah. Any other questions? So last time, by the way, we talked about generating, how do you generate questions? We talked about, the manual, right? All the way to automated. And this is really critical because we're on the path to moving toward automated with a lot of our solution. And by that, I mean, soon is probably July, maybe end of July, maybe August, sometime around that timeline. We're hoping to be able to even automate the process more. And by that, what I mean is my boring old lecture and its 15 supporting documents that I want my students to read will be the knowledge base. And you'll be able to have that in a box and then point the AI to it, and the AI will respond to questions based on that knowledge source. And that's really powerful because I don't want it to give answers beyond my knowledge source, because that's the content that I own. Maybe it's some publications I have, maybe it's some articles that I feel are really important for the students to learn, or maybe it's a post-op protocol that's very unique to my surgical workflow, right? I want that to be the knowledge base that the AI points at and retrieves the answer from. Right now, that's possible. We can do that on a custom basis for each individual customer. Give us your knowledge base and we'll create it for you. But we want a push button solution. Drag and drop your stuff in here and have that be your knowledge base. And we're on a path of getting there. But right now, you know, there is the manual add each individual question. And the beauty of this is that as soon as you add the question and the answer and add any supporting image, video, link, or URL and save it, it's already published. Since this is a streaming app, that's already published and it's done. The other way that I mentioned before is to import, you know, questions. And the way I do this, I just, you know, give a prompt to a generative tool and say, create me question and answer sets. Then I edit and import. You can also generate using the existing transcript. So generate questions from transcript. When I hit that, it will actually go through, read the transcript, generate questions, then generate answers to those questions from the transcript, and then also identify the segment of the video that particular topic is being discussed. So, for instance, what makes troponin 1 particularly valuable in diagnosing heart attacks? It gives an answer from the contact from the transcript. It didn't go into the internet. It stuck to the transcript. It also identified the video segment that relates to that particular question. So I, as the content owner, will have to sit there and go, yeah, I want that question. I don't want that question, you know, and then save. And it goes as saves that as well. Where we're going with this is the next prompt, which is generate a question from a prompt. Now, what I did is I went ahead and let me see if I can find this. I made a little paragraph saying, you know, make me a paragraph on diet tips for a nurse to give to a patient. Gave me a paragraph. I'm like, okay, this is good. You know, protein fish, I like this, makes sense. Or this could be my own protocol, my own narrative. And through this prompt tool, I just paste that in there. Now, this has a limit. The context window, the amount of information the system can gobble up is limited, so you can't put everything in there. But imagine the day where you can dump all your documents in here and then have that be the knowledge base and have it automatically, without even asking, generate question and answer pairs from your existing documents. And, you know, currently this is how it works. And it created, you know, 5 good questions. Maybe not all are what I want. Maybe I want something else. But it did that automatically for me. And I accept that. And it winds up adding that to my data set. So you can see how we're moving toward this automation path where this button will essentially just be integrated. You don't have to generate. All you do is dump your information in here. And then when you go to interact with the system, it points at that knowledge base and gives you the answers. So I'm going to pause there and see if there are any questions about this component of question and answer generation. Great. Then the final question that comes up is, how do we share this? It's a link. You can embed it. You can make it a QR code. You can email it. You can post it on social media. But this link is essentially all you need. And for this particular lecture, keep in mind, I made one quiz. This can be distributed to 1,000 students. And since each one of these quizzes is unique in Google Forms, I'm going to get 1,000 emails and replies back. Now that may be overwhelming, going, how am I gonna manage 1,000 quizzes? But as these automated tools come on board, you're gonna have more ability to digest all that information.
So how
As
that,
it,
you're
yeah,
not only gonna have 1,000 quizzes, it's gonna grade it. It's also gonna,
yes,
so you don't have to worry
it'll
about
grade.
grading.
Yeah. So we
No
can
more
actually,
grading papers. Yay.
well, it's going to grade it, right? So I'll go ahead and submit that, and you know, it grades it. It gives the score right there. But I also believe it goes to my email. Sorry, you guys are looking at my email.
That's
It
okay.
should give me a it should give me a notification pretty soon. Maybe I'll wait for that to come up. But it does that for you. What this can help, by the way, is as an educator, you say, here's the lecture I gave it. Here's the interactive version of it. There's a quiz in there, guys, and I want you to take the quiz as a home study guide. And then you'll see, oh, it looks like out of my 1,000 students, 999 did it, and the other students didn't interact. So then you've identified a disengaged student that didn't participate, and it allows you to focus in on that particular student more. Maybe there's a social issue, maybe there's a learning issue, maybe there's a language barrier issue. You help to identify that. Otherwise, we don't know. What happens is we give the lecture, any questions? See you later. And that's it till the next lecture. So they're completely floating out there without us really knowing what their knowledge base is, what their engagement level is. Wouldn't it be wonderful that you created a system and based on the interaction with the system, you can assess the student's state of mind, right? And that's where a lot of this automation, this promise that we want for education is going, but it's still not there. But if you could understand that student's state of mind going, oh, you know, this student didn't get enough sleep last night. Now, let's just put that in a black box how we got there, but didn't get enough sleep last night. And that may be why they're not performing as well. Or this student is more of a visual learner. Maybe I should be giving more visual components to the education as opposed to auditory. So integrating those concepts in the interactivity is something that I think will help educators tremendously, but currently it's just not there. It's the promise of AI, but currently it's not there.
So a
So
couple of things.
yeah.
So you can do item analysis and then see. So if you've got like, 900 of these folks that didn't get this question, then you can focus your next lecture on that and tailor your instruction from there.
Not even your next lecture, on the fly. What we're talking about is really immediately being able to understand the student's state of mind. Now, how that's done, I don't have the magic recipe to give you, but it is something that will be possible as these tools are refined. How far is that out? I would say maybe 2 to 5 years, not 2 to 5 months, but it is something that can be done. Now, the AI, I should have made sure this last time, but just on this boring old, like whatever, right? Avatar lecture, it already does sentiment analysis and emotive analysis, right? So imagine when the students interacting with the tool, let's say they speak into the machine does emotive and sentiment analysis and says, oh, the student is in this state of mind, and why don't we educate them using this type of tonality, right? And to the converse of that is, let's say this particular lecture, right? I give the lecture and I'm like, hey, that was pretty good. I gave a good lecture. And then you get analysis of your lecture through the machine going, you know what? You're pretty angry at this point in the lecture. And, your sentiment was negative when you're talking about this topic or positive. Now, this is very crude. It's very rudimentary. And I don't even know where the accuracy rate on some of these things are, emotive and sentiment analysis, when you're looking at a video. But this would be a very interesting integration, both on the presenter side and also on the student side, to really know the emotive and emotive state of the people interacting with the tool. This is something that's, by the way, completely lost in any lecture hall. I mean, you know, if you have a lecture hall, you're talking to people. In the days when we were in lecture halls talking to people, I suppose, you know, that interaction is so huge, and it's very difficult to sometimes understand the state of mind of 100 people in front of you, right? So yeah, absolutely. Any other question?
Robert, you had a question. Did you want to get on this?
No, actually, I was gonna just say the same thing you did. If you have a quiz and, you know, 90% get it wrong, then you realize, somehow I've got to tweak the talk so that they, you know, they get the idea that I'm trying to, give them.
Yeah, so yeah, I mean, if you give a lecture and then everyone bombs the test, then it's like, was the quiz too hard, or was the lecture too difficult, or was the lecture not clear enough, right? Yeah, but if you're giving a tool that has your contained knowledge base, then that's a little bit easier, I think, to at least dispense. Because I remember my medical school days, I'd always sit there and wonder, like, okay, what are going to what was given in lecture, what's in the textbook, what am I going to get quizzed on? And we would actually sit there and kind of analyze the professor and go, this guy goes straight from the book, nothing in his lecture is worthwhile, don't even go to lecture, or you got to go to lecture on this particular one because all the quiz answers are in the lecture, right? So that kind of interaction is not as probably relevant these days with virtual learning and all these resources. The students don't even know where to go, and they just go through multiple quizzes just to be able to build up their knowledge base. I'm going to stop there.
There's another interesting use case where a professor is using it. She records her classes, and often she said a lot of students come and ask her questions that were covered in the class, and that takes a lot of time to go over, and there's never enough time. So now she's putting the questions and answers in her QVO so that the students can go reference it and do it on their own time, and reduce the time, the one-on-one time, they're having to come to visit in the offices, which I found an interesting use case too.
Yeah. Well, an extension of that, Armin, wouldn't it be great that lecture wasn't a person standing up there and just giving a lecture?
Right.
Wouldn't it be great if it was more of an open discussion and you've leveled everyone up on the knowledge base, and then now we're talking to the students and just connecting on multiple different levels, as opposed to just, you know, I mean, the last med school lecture I gave, Trisha's not gonna like it, but I got horrible reviews because, like, he asked us questions and he made us sit together, and I'm like, well, like, I probably was too intimidated. I didn't know, I got it wrong, but it would be great that if that format was changed, and that is one of the hard goals that I don't know if we can ever change, but it always inspires me to try to push that envelope forward.
Well, what that does is it really allows, you know, we've talked in previous sessions for them to get the information earlier, you know, and then in the session, it's more of a facilitated conversation.
That's right.
And as far as Trish is concerned, she's probably one of the most interactive people when it comes to doing speaking.
Yeah.
That's why we're talking. Yeah. So, yeah, love it.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and from your corporate communication side of the business, you know, helping people understand certain protocols within a business and getting everybody on the same page, it has the same value proposition there too.
Yeah,
It does have a lot of value. One of the things that I like about the quiz integration that you were showing is that it has that working memory kick in where the homunculus decides, yes, I need to hold on to this for a little while. I need to know this. I'm going to store this in long-term memory because they're engaging with it. It's not the sage on the stage, which is not effective. No study shows that that's effective. The more they interact with it, discuss it, the more senses they incorporate, the more the recall is going to increase.
Yeah.
So I love that.
Yeah. So to your point, by the way, for 38-minute lectures, right? I mean, some of these students may not be able to sit there. So short layered sessions, right? You give a 6-minute lecture, and there's some studies to show that this shorter, and 6 minutes is a number I remember. 6-minute lecture with multiple layers, And then those layers kind of get graded based on the student's ability. So you create a feedback loop. You're like, okay, looks like you're a beginner learner. You're asking about what the median nerve is. Then it gives you a lot of questions and interactivity about the median nerve. You're an advanced learner. You're at the, graduate, postgraduate level. You want to know what this nuanced anatomy part is. Then it starts quizzing. And we're actually right now we're binary. We hide things and we showcase things. Like, here's the thing I want you to see first, or here's the thing that you only see if you ask about it. And the hidden layers are more the safety layers, like, I want to harm myself, or things you don't want to be like front and center.
Okay.
But we're working toward actually creating that type of an algorithm where it just says, oh, you're asking anatomy questions. Here's 50 questions in anatomy that relate, and then they all fall in line together.
So good. And the
Very
6-minute
impressive.
lectures are just right on, because that's what we're running with Open Sesame. When these do 6 to 9 minutes, that's tops. That's what we got. And you get 1 or 2 points across, and then you stop and your brain refreshes. And so, yeah. Trisha,
Yeah.
I think I cut you off. So good.
No, I just said that's impressive.
Yeah. So 100%. So by the way, I don't know if you give any classes on corporate training, but I'd love to take them. Trish, corporate speak. No, I'm not. I'm not. I mean, I'm being serious. But so
We do
your
training,
knowledge base, your knowledge base, right? I mean, that is critical, and we will not be able to find that anywhere else unless we interact with you or get your knowledge base dispensed, right? Like, go scrape the internet as much as you want, go throw any kind of a prompt into a generative tool. You're just not going to get it, because that's up there and maybe in a Dropbox folder or a Google Drive folder somewhere, but it's not like, it's not
I
something
love
that
teaching public presentation, because
Mhm.
so much of what we see is either the sage on the stage. Roger and I talk about this all the time, where the attendee is not engaged
Right.
or excited.
Right.
And there are all these emotions you can generate, where
Yeah.
it can be a transformative experience, or there's not authenticity, there's not
Yeah.
storytelling.
Yeah.
When you look at storytelling, that's what we've done for hundreds of years to keep history alive, is tell a story. It's really exciting. I've taken all my disciplines and balled them up into my business.
Yeah.
But yes,
So
we do team training on public speaking.
So one of the things that we didn't dig into today was those characters that you saw. All that is generated with 3D technology. That means that it's actually active in VR, and we've implemented this in VR. Where we're going with this is really be able to hook up a language model, free-flowing conversation model, to the VR experience. And then you're talking in that lecture hall to students or to a patient or to another person,
Yeah.
and really doing those cycles in your head in a more immersive environment.
You look like you're having a blast doing this. I have to say, you just look like you love it, which is really cool.
Well,
yeah.
it's not even 6:30 yet, right?
It's not even 6:30 in the morning. And
It's not 6:30 where I am, but I tell you, yeah, I mean, being embedded in 2 decades of academic environments, it becomes repetitive, and that's one of the things that academia, in a lot of ways, at the higher level, has, at least on the medical education, surgical education side, it's become a little bit stale. It's like, listen to the professor, do it my way. That don't work anymore. They don't want to listen to me. They just want like the problem solved, like get
Well,
on with
we've
it.
talked about this in subsequent sessions too. This is what makes it so much easier. I mean, Archana, Robert, you've been in my sessions. It's like, here's the video, watch the video, here's how to do it. Now go do it. Now go do it. And it just, I don't need to teach another lecture on creative questions. It's there. And
Yeah.
so then that allows me to nuance it and deal with the needs of the group and stuff. So, and David Yates is going to say the same thing. So, yeah.
So by the way, one of the things that we're thinking about and we haven't really figured out how to implement is to incentivize the curiosity. How do you incentivize that spur, that question? How do you get that student to go, really? Like carpal tunnel? I want to know more about that, besides the fact that they have to study it. And I think that relates to how you present some of these layers, some of these question layers, and call to action buttons as well. So we're going to have a lot more features to be able to kind of allow creators and content and educators to drive the conversation in certain ways as well. But really, I think the curiosity factors is what's missing out there for a lot of young minds.
I
And
sometimes make it an assignment at the end of a longer section of a course or a night class or something and say, what 3 questions do you have?
yeah,
Write down 3 questions based, so the critical thinking has to start to kick in a little bit. If this is this and this is that, well, then what does this mean? So what is your question? So
right.
I'll have them do something like that, or a reflection piece on what are the implications of, and I'll give them a prompt. So it's all about these engagement tools that have
Right.
to exist. Why are you smiling like that?
No, because I'm smiling because we actually one of the research projects we had at George Washington University is using the system in a tailored way to get cognitive impaired nursing facility patients or residents to speak. And so it speaks. I'm smiling because it does. How do you get them to say things, right? So imagine if there's a button on there that says, ask me the 3 questions or just speak your mind. And then you're able to capture that data,
Yeah.
right, after a session and then analyze it and go, okay, well, this is the state of mind and that correlates with this type of a performance. So 100% trying to get more robust data sets into the system through the interactivity is something that I'm very much interested in. Yeah. So
Well, you blew my mind today, because up until today, I thought Slido was cool. That seems like prehistoric now.
I mean, God, these things are on such a pace to change. Now, the other thing, by the way, is that as the technology improves, we all know the curve goes like this, and then it starts to flatten out.
Yeah.
We're starting to get to this point, and then for it to hit that 100% mark, I think, sometimes it takes 2 centuries, sometimes it takes a decade, but we're starting to get to the top of that. The other part of it is that the narrative out there's so much misinformation and they're just like so much fear mongering. And we're finding this out as we're talking to potential customers. They're like, I got a text message saying, hey, I'm a real human. I'm not an AI. AI's become the word for like lying and fake now, right? I'm not an AI. I'm a real human trying to, connect with you. So the hype will die down. And then as this integration happens, people aren't going to use the word AI. It's just going to be automation, augmentation.
That's irritating me, the whole reputation of it, because a telephone means that a person can call you. But when a robocall started, they didn't start saying, are you fake? Is this fake? It could be a real call. It could be your insurance company offering you a discount, but they don't know that.
Yeah.
So yes, it is getting a bad rap. I think that the PR around it has to change. The conversation has to change, because so many people do not realize they've been using AI for years.
Right.
They just don't know.
Right.
It didn't have a name to them.
Yeah. So my perspective, this is going to be like smoking and opioids, right? It's going to be dispensed, unfortunately. There's going to be harm done, then the regulation is going to hit, right? So and right now, when you look at the regulation out there, it's kind of like, what are you guys talking about, right? Like, it just doesn't make sense. And it's going to be after the fact regulation. And unfortunately, or fortunately, maybe, I don't know. That's just how our system runs, right? I mean, it's just out there. Then we sit there and go, oh, social media is bad for young minds. Well, it's been 20 years of things being bad, right? Same with this. And this election cycle may shed more light on all this stuff as we move forward, too. So
Wonderful. Well, my friends, it's 10 after the hour, and it's not even 6:30 in California yet. So, Ali, thank you for being with us for these last 4 sessions.
yeah.
We're going to keep going with this. Archana, who is going to be with us on the 20th?
Her name is Anuradha Joshi. She
Right, Joshi.
attended one of the sessions here, and she's coming for SIPSI.
Okay.
And,
She's one of our students, isn't she, David? Isn't Josie
she
one of them?
is.
Yeah,
She
great.
is. Mhm.
So if you just send me a little email on that,
I
we'll
will.
push that out on the 20th. And so, Arma, let's get together, have coffee with Robert. So, and catch up. Yeah.
I'd like to. Yeah.
Yeah,
Definitely. And I will be at your, I did register for your
Oh, good.
next week. So
Good. And Alidad, thank you so much for all that
Yeah.
you've done and getting up so early. And so we're going to keep this discussion going. And thank you for being with us for the last 3 sessions. And away we go. So
Yeah.
if we could, Robert and Tricia and David, if you could just stay on for just a second. So once you guys meet everybody. And go ahead, Ali, please. Yeah.
Yeah, one final thing. So Archana, Armin will connect with you to get you on there. And Trisha, I'd love to connect with you offline and just learn about what you're doing. Because I think we're going to have a lot of commonalities.
Thank you. I just sent you a
and learn from
LinkedIn
you.
connection. Go ahead.
Oh, awesome.
great.
Thank you so much. And God bless. Thank you, everybody. Yeah.
Thank you, everybody. This
Awesome.
it's happening. So thank you all so much. Archie, I'll see you later. Ali, and Armin, we'll see you later. And so let's